Listening to the IFF TV podcast.
Hello and welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. This is our League of Ireland Premier Division show. I'm joined by Gary Spain and Jared Brown, and we're going to start off talking about Jared's favourite team, St. Pat's, a 2-0 win up in Ballybuffet against Finn Harps, and the goals coming from Billy King in the 15th minute and Matthew Smith in the 61st minute. Jared, what were your feelings originally going up there? Were you a bit nervous considering the start that Finn Harps have had, even though they've had a slight dip in form recently?
Yeah, I was just saying to one of the mates on WhatsApp on Friday morning, I was actually very nervous about this game because it's always a tricky place to go and play, and adding the fact that despite a couple of recent results overall in general, it's been a very good start to the season for Finn Harps. But I do think the fact that we did rest a couple of players, made the 6 changes for the Waterford game on Tuesday, probably meant we were going to have quite a lot of fresh legs going into this game on Friday night, and it probably told overall it wasn't maybe the prettiest of games. There wasn't too many kind of clear-cut chances. I think you think back to the first half and maybe Sam Bones' free header from Forrester's corner, a good shot across the face of the goal from John Mountney that just went inches wide. But there was very, very little in terms of clear-cut chances until Billy King's goal. Great finish. There's a lot of work to do when he gets that ball out of his feet, but a powerful kind of drive. And kind of once he got the second goal, again, King really heavily involved, picking out Coughlin, who dinks the ball up for Matty Smith to head home. Never really in any danger. Credit to Finn Harps, a typical kind of spirit as you would expect from them. They never died. They gave it a good goal. They kept throwing at it. They were always a danger with David Webster from the long throw-ins and from set pieces. But I thought Yaris, who overall in general has barely put a foot wrong this season, dealt with everything that was thrown at him. Great hands in the air, and credit to me, always catches the ball 9 times out of 10. And it was quite comfortable. Probably the only slight concern, Ronan Coughlin had to be taken off midway through the second half. I hope it's only a precaution because he did kind of go down. Robbie Benson wasn't even involved in the matchday squad. So Stephen Bradley did touch on it. He felt with our kind of small squad, Stephen O'Donnell did touch on it with our kind of small squad, and with the 3 games in 6 days, it was going to lead to injuries. There has been a couple, but overall, in general, if you can come away with Finn Harps with a victory, you go top of the table, you keep another clean sheet, best defensive record in the league, you have to be very, very happy.
Yeah, Gary, I'm just going to come to you. St. Pat's are top of the table now, level of points with Shamrock Rovers, 17 points and unbeaten so far. And the thing that's impressed me is the fact that Stephen O'Donnell is actually bringing in youngsters like he did against Waterford the other night, Ben McCormack, Dara Burns, and he's bringing in these players and they're stepping up and performing when he's been able to take other players out. I think it's a real good sign for Pats that they can rely on these youngsters and actually trust them to come in and do a job in games where they feel like, you know, they still need to win the games, but they probably need to rest other players as well. So I think you're starting to see a real good depth in their quality in their squad.
Yeah, well, the concern I would have, I mean, Pats are 1 goal ahead of Shamrock Rovers in goal difference, so it's they're pretty much level at this point. The concern I have, and I mean, it did pay off for Stephen O'Donnell. It was a good move to rest the players against Waterford, and he got away with it. The concern would be going forward for this squad. And can he manage that again? Because if you look at coming up again, I think it's Longford at home on Friday night. They're up in Sligo on Monday, and then Shamrock Rovers at home the following weekend. So again, it's another period. This 36 game league is really, really demanding, and you really need a good squad. And I'm assuming that he might take the chance again at home to Longford and have to rest a few players, and then because it's going to be really, it would be too much to ask the players to play again 3 games in a week, and particularly 2 really tough ones. Not that Longford is easy by any means, but particularly going to the showgrounds and then entertaining Shamrock Rovers, which is going to be an absolutely massive game. And Pats are on an unbeaten run against Rovers as well. So it is impressive that he can bring in these young players, but if you look at the Shamrock Rovers squad and you look at the players they can bring in, it's seasoned players who are well used to playing in the Premier League. And no matter how impressive the Pats start has been, That would be my concern. But look, hats off, they've done an incredible job. And in many of the cases, he's using Dundalk cast-offs who are sitting well ahead of Dundalk in the table at the moment. And he's got to be absolutely delighted with the start. And Pats fans should be absolutely delighted, of course. And I just hope they can sustain it, because I hope we have a really good title race. And it was great for Shamrock Rovers last season that they had a bit of a procession to the title from a long way out. But I certainly don't want that happening this year or every year.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at it, like some of the players that he's brought in, you said there, the Dundalk cast-offs, like you even look at Paddy Barrett who's came in, and he's been brilliant since he's came in there alongside Lee Desmond. And I think we had spoken about Lee Desmond on the watch along last night, myself and Ger. I've just been really impressed at how he's gone up through the levels. And again, he looks brilliant this season. A real leader in the heart that St. Pat's defence. And I think players like Ronan Coughlin have come in and maybe not necessarily scored a whole lot of goals, but he's been involved. What's the stat, Ger? He's been involved in how many goals since he started with St. Pat's?
5 goals, so three assists, and he's scored 2 himself. So it's not a bad return so far in 7 games in.
Yeah, but I was reading, I think it was LOI's Stato, and it said like he has a huge amount of goal involvements, helping Pats win games and stuff like that. So hopefully he's not out for too long, because he'll be a huge miss. And we spoke about the depth in the quality of the squad, but you don't have too many players who, I suppose, are scoring goals or affecting games probably like he is. So he's obviously key to the way St. Pat's play at the moment. But just Finn Harps, on the other hand, they are going through a little bit of a slump. And I suppose at the start of the season, you were expecting results like this to start happening. It's just that they've started the season so fantastically well. But I think now it's maybe catching up on them a little bit. And maybe the fact of the quick games turnaround as well might be catching up on them a little bit. But I still think that they're well capable of bouncing back, but just at the moment it's a little bit of a slump in form. What are your thoughts, Ger?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there, small slump in form of them, but I think if you told Ali Horgan after the great start has, even if they were to go 3 games without a win, they'd still be fourth in the table, they'd still be 6 points ahead of that relegation playoff zone, which is probably still what they're going to be mainly kind of targeting. Like as I said earlier, in fairness to them, like they huffed and they puffed and they gave it absolutely everything. You can't criticise them for fault or for effort in any which way on Friday night. They just probably were lacking that little bit of quality in the final third, apart from a long-range effort from Carlos Sullivan in the first half that was always rising. Nothing else really majorly stands out from chances of creation. It just always seems to be kind of balls into the box, and Jarvis was always kind of comfortable to go and get them. But they've got a couple of big games coming up now. They've got another Northwest Derby against Derry, and then they've got the back-to-back games against Dublin clubs, against Bowes and Shelburne. So it could be hard again to make a case for them to make points, but hey, look, no one would expect them to get the 6 points they got at the start of the season. So never write off this Finn Harps team or Ollie Horgan in general.
Yeah, Gary, what are your thoughts on Finn Harps at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, they've only lost 2 games. I know they've lost their last 2 games, but as Ger said, I mean, they're in good shape. I mean, 11 points from 7 games. I'm sure Ollie Horgan would have been biting your hand off for that if he was offered that at the start of the season. They're 6 points ahead of Longford, they're 5 ahead of Waterford, and they're still 3 ahead of Drogheda, and they're probably the teams they're keeping an eye on. I don't think they expected to be 6 points ahead of Derry, but I don't think anyone expected Derry to be bottom at this stage. So yeah, I think they've Shamrock Rovers at home next, which doesn't help when you're trying to come out of the slump. But look, Harps are always very competitive, and I think we're probably joking a bit, really, a couple of weeks ago, talking about Harps being in the title race or doing a Leicester City. But I think they're going to be okay. I don't see them being sucked back into the relegation battle. And I think a boring mid-table is on the cards for Finn Harps this season, and I think Harps fans would be delighted with that. They've had enough promotion, playoffs, and relegation battles. It's probably great to have key important games and every week, and Harps have probably had that for quite a few seasons now. But I'm sure they'd take a season of boring mid-table.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right in saying that. I think the fact that they've a settled squad, I think that's the difference now, and to be able to turn results around soon. I think they just need to play maybe a team that I suppose are in and around them. Well, if you actually think about, where they'll probably be towards the end of the season, mid-table to lower half of the league. I mean, so if they start playing a couple of teams like that, they've come off the back of a couple of bad results now, so they probably need to play someone in and around their kind of, I don't want to say level to sound disrespectful, but you know what I mean in saying that. So I think then they can really test themselves again and maybe bounce back in that sense. I'd be very surprised if they take points off Shamrock Rovers, but then again, stranger things have happened, so we'll have to wait and see. But we suppose we'll move on to Tala and Shamrock Rovers winning 2-1 in the Dublin Derby. A game that I was at in Tallaght Stadium. Obviously, there was a controversy, a late drama with a penalty. But I suppose the goal scorers of Dylan Watson in the 5th minute, Ross Tierney with a header in the 19th minute, and Graham Burke then with a penalty on the 76th minute, which we'll come to in a sec. But just this game, it was honestly, I remember Alan Cawley and Vinnie Perth were sitting behind me in the stadium, and they were just blown away by how open the game was. It was like a basketball game, many people were saying, in the stadium. Like, it was literally end to end, and they both had great chances. This is the first time I got to watch Bows this season, and it's probably the best performance they've put on from hearing from other people. I just think, I know Bows have lost against Sligo and Shamrock Rovers now, and I just think, look, they're showing signs that it will click soon, I think. Ross Tierney was absolutely brilliant. I like the look of Liam Burt on the left-hand side as well. The only thing I will say about Burt is he had a chance that he should have buried. I mean, it looked... He took it first time. The ball came across from Keith Ward. It was a counter-attack almost from the halfway line, and Keith Ward took it right up to the box, crossed it in for Georgie Kelly, and he kind of slipped. He had a Shamrock Rovers defender with him. He kind of slipped, and then Burt came in, and he could have taken a touch and settled himself, but he decided to hit it first time. Now, had it went in, it would have been a great goal, but obviously it flashed wide, and yeah, he was probably a little bit embarrassed with the finish himself. But then again, Aaron Green went down the other end and missed a chance that was probably easier to score as well, and he fluffed it wide. So there was two really big chances at that stage at 1-1 that could have really turned the game, but they didn't take them. And Dylan Watts obviously gets the first goal to open the scoring. Again, this game really, really missed fans. I don't think it would have been as open if fans were there. It was obviously good for a neutral point of view watching it. I really enjoyed the game, but I was also looking at it just going, like, this is a game that is one of them that you go, you know what, fans should really be, at least some fans should really be in for this. And I know we're always kind of going on about it, that fans should be allowed back in. But I suppose just the biggest talking point was obviously the penalty. I think it was a penalty. I said this on the watch along show last night. I just don't think maybe a red card should have been the call. I think maybe a yellow card and a penalty would have been enough. I think that was the damage was done with the red card. I think that effectively killed the game then. And I had a feeling like Graham Burke was going to score and Shamrock Rovers won. I mean, there's so much controversy over even the interviews after the game. Stephen Bradley and Keith Long, like, Stephen Bradley was quite adamant it was a penalty, and he was like, so many of them have gone against us in recent times. And then Keith Long was the other way around. But like, we've been at games where red cards have ruined these games as well in the past, and managers haven't been happy. I think the one last year, when Keith Ward was rolling around, I can't remember who was the one who tackled him. Was it Joey O'Brien? So there's been red cards that have ruined these games anyway in the past. But Gary, I suppose I'll come to you, and you'd have been watching from the TV. Where I was sitting, it looked like a penalty to me, and I've seen screenshots and people playing it back. What were your thoughts? Did you think it was a penalty, and was a red card the right decision, or do you think it could have been a yellow because it wasn't an obvious goal scoring opportunity?
Yeah, I've watched it back a few times, and I would have sympathy with the referee. Okay, I'll certainly have that. I don't think there was enough to give a penalty. I mean, Danny Mandrew was coming in at pace. There's no doubt about that. And there probably was slight contact. Was there enough for him to go down? I'm not so sure. Maybe it's one that you get VAR involved, although I'm not a fan of VAR. The red card, I think the problem is, if you decide it's a penalty and the referee made that call, then Danny Mandrew was bursting into the box at high speed. It was then a clear and obvious goal-scoring opportunity. There was no real attempt to play the ball. So if you decide it was a foul, then you have to give the red card as well, which I know seems really, really harsh. But that's the law of the game as it is at the moment, in that if the referee decides it's an attempt to play the ball and he fouls the player, then he just gives the penalty and a yellow card. But if there was no attempt to play the ball, he decides it's a foul, it's a penalty, then unfortunately it's a red card and a penalty, and that decided the game. And yeah, for me, I'd have a lot of sympathy for Bohs. I think they feel hard done by. What a decision to decide such a crucial game. I would go back to your point as well about fans, Paul, and I definitely agree with that. I only saw the highlights, but it does appear to be a hugely open and hugely entertaining game. And probably a lot of that is down to the lack of fans. Although it would have been fantastic to have had fans, it would have been some occasion in Tala on Friday night, because I think there would have been a full house and it would have been some entertainment for the Bohs and Rovers fans as well as for the neutrals. But a controversial one to decide the game, and I've watched it back a few times and I'm still a little bit unsure. So I wouldn't be blaming the referee. If you're a Rovers fan, you're going to say definite penalty. If you're a Bohs fan, you're going to say it's not. Tough one.
Ger, do you think that this is a decision that's maybe evened out over time, considering some people say that decisions have favoured Bohs in recent derbies and stuff like this? But anyway, did you think it was a penalty, and what were your thoughts on the, I suppose, the scoreline, considering now Shamrock Rovers are level with Pats at the top of the table?
Yeah, overall, with your first point, there's no two ways about it. Over the course of a 36-game season, these things and decisions balance yourself out. I think you'll find overall, throughout the course of the season, teams will get decisions they shouldn't have got, and they'll get decisions that they will kind of deem softly and fairly as well. And as you touched on, even this derby, it's not that long ago as well. You know, Bohs won a game against Shamrock Rovers where they ended the match with 9 men. And a lot of times they've got men sent off themselves over, so they can't kind of complain too much. I was kind of the same as yourself when I watched the game back on Saturday morning. Initially in real time, I thought it was kind of a foul. I suppose the benefit of replays and stuff like that and kind of slowing things down, it does kind of seem there was minimal contact, but as Gary touched on, Mandrea was going at fast speed. If you feel contact inside the box, you're going to be told from your manager to kind of go down. So I can see why it was kind of given. I do think the red card was extremely harsh. I think as Keith Long touched on it, which is his interview with RT as well after, it's a double jeopardy as well. And even the penalty as well, it wasn't the cleanest of strikes from Graham's Burke. I think if you were to ask James Talbot back, he'd be very annoyed himself that he didn't save it, because he kind of seemed to kind of get a bit on it. And credit to Bohs as well, even though with that 10 minutes for the last 13 minutes, but they never maybe created many chances, they did really give it a good go and push kind of quite hard. And I said it in the WhatsApp group earlier, overall in general, if I was a Bohs fan, I'd be really annoyed you didn't get anything from this game in the balance of play, because we touched on the chance that Burt missed in the first half. George Kelly missed a great chance as well in the second half where he clips the outside the post. Fair enough, he was put under a bit of pressure. And even as well, wasn't there in just about 10 minutes into the second half as well, Sean Gannon fouls Burt as well, and it was just outside the box, another 2 or 3 yards, that's the penalty. Gannon, I think, was suffering from an injury in the first half, but I did feel any of the kind of chances that came the way in the second half seemed to be more along the way of Bohs. I thought the first half, the standard was absolutely brilliant for the first 45 minutes. Brilliant pace, brilliant tempo, end-to-end, loads of chances. Second half didn't quite keep up with that, which I think was understandable, but it was still a very, very good game. And it was fantastic to see after all the talk of supposed European Super League and people saying they want to buy into the League of Ireland and get behind it, that the first televised match that we have to attract major eyes, we had a fantastic product to show on Friday night.
I think just on what you said there, obviously about Gannon, that was another talking point that Bohs felt aggrieved that maybe Sean Gannon should have been sent off. They were trying to claim him as the last man in that scenario. So, that's why I just think a yellow card probably would have been enough punishment for Finnerty, as well as giving away the penalty. Because I feel like there's no real need to send him off there. If he was about to pull the trigger and shoot, then fair enough. But it was more of a kind of like a tangle of legs in the box, I felt. Gary, you're looking
I am, Paul, because the rule is denying a clear and obvious goal-scoring opportunity. It's not last man. And Danny Mandrea was coming in at pace. So if the referee makes the call, it's a penalty, then I think he is being denied. He's pushing into the box. And I think he is being denied a clear and obvious goal-scoring opportunity unless the referee decides it was an attempt to play the ball. And I don't think there was any attempt to play the ball. So the problem is, and I agree it's harsh, but under the laws of the game, if the referee gives the penalty, then he has to give the red card. I don't think he has anything else he can do about that. Now, I have sympathy for the referee, and I think if you watch it back on video, I don't think he'd have given the penalty. I think it's very, very harsh in Bowes. But we have the benefit of watching it back a few times. We can slow it down, etc., as Ger said. And even still, I'm a little bit unsure. I mean, I wouldn't be arguing strongly that it wasn't a penalty, that, or indeed that it was a penalty. My viewing of it, I probably wouldn't have given a penalty, and even partly because it also means a red card, and it effectively decides the game. But so you can't. I don't think you can argue that it's a penalty and just a yellow card, because the laws of the game are very clear, and if the referee did that, the assessor would have him in big trouble over that.
Maybe so. I still think it should have been just a yellow. But anyway, look, the game was won there, and it is what it is. You can't argue with facts. Shamrock Rovers top of the league. Bowes are in sixth.
Shamrock Rovers second.
Sorry?
Shamrock Rovers second.
Oh, well, they're still top level on points.
We better go difference now.
Remind us who's top, Ger.
St. Pat's.
Remind us or what?
Just point out we have a better goal difference, St. Pat's, that's all.
All right, fair enough. I'm not arguing. So yeah, up to Oriel Park, Dundalk 2, Drogheda 1 in the Loud Derby. David McMillan and Jin Woo Hun with their goals, and Chris Lyons then in the 90th minute for Drogheda. I suppose this is a game where Dundalk would have been saying we have to win this game and we really have to start turning their season around, and that's exactly what they do. I don't know if their season's going to turn around from here, but you'd imagine if you're a Dundalk fan that you'd want that to happen from here on in. Gary, were you surprised by the scoreline, or did you think business is resumed at Oriel Park?
No, I wasn't surprised. I did expect Dundalk to win this game, and I did expect it to be close and a tight game. And it was a very good win for them. And it was badly needed. I would not be surprised to see Dundalk go on a bit of a run now and win a few games on the spin. They have a lot of quality players. At worst, probably the second best squad in the league. Apart from Shamrock Rovers, and I say some Dundalk fans may argue they have even a better squad, but definitely Rovers have a better team at the moment. It's a fantastic opportunity for the new manager, whoever they may be, because they're going to come in with the team quite down near the bottom half of the table, but with a very good squad of players, and I have no doubt they're going to pick up and go on a run. It was also great. I only saw the highlights of this. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole game, but I watched quite a bit of it back. It was great to hear the fans at this. I've seen the photo since, and there was ladders and everything used, and they were certainly very vocal at this. And it was probably, I think that's a first in Oriel Park. Maybe it's been going on for a while. It's the first I've heard of it anyway. But you could certainly hear them. And it was not a perfect performance by Dundalk, but it was a good win. It was good to get the win under their belts. I think they deserved to win the game. Drogheda did give them a late scare. James Brown, we've mentioned him a few times, coming up from full back to set up Chris Lyons, and he looks quite a player, certainly a very good attacking full back. He's been involved in quite a few Drogheda goals this season. So I think Drogheda won't be too despondent from this, and they're still ahead of Dundalk in the table, but I don't see that lasting for too much longer. But a good win for Dundalk. Probably too much of a gap to make up on Shamrock Rovers at this point, but you never know. But I would expect Dundalk to be up in and around the European places within a few weeks.
You mean St. Pat's?
Pats, but I think it's Shamrock Rovers. Shamrock Rovers are going to be their target.
Ger, just on this game, obviously, you were up in Oriel Park there recently enough to see them against St. Pat's, wasn't it, last week?
Yeah.
So what have you made of Dundalk? Because I haven't seen them so far, other than a game against Rovers, Shamrock Rovers.
From Yeah, from watching this game as well on Saturday, I think there's definitely improvements from Dundalk over the last week. It's a decent enough return, getting 5 points in the last 3 weeks. The Pats game, actually, to be brutally honest, it probably wasn't until they made a double late substitution. They brought on Darragh Leahy and David McMillan that game kind of turned. Pats were the better team and looked like they were going to see the game out until that double substitution. It was all hands on deck, and they got that late equaliser from Junior and probably should have won it then really towards the end. Paddy Barrett coming to Pat's rescue. Yeah, I'd agree with you from Gary. Not a perfect performance by any means by Dundalk, but definitely the better team, definitely deserved the win. Thought they were quite good in the first half. Both their goals were really good moves. Like even first goal there, we talked about James Brown being brilliantly defensive or attacking wise for Drogheda, but yeah, Jurkowski's really kind of skinned them for that first goal with the cross into the box. And Dave McMillan, kind of nearly a forgotten man, but he's definitely reminded Dundalk fans he's a lot to offer with 2 goals in the last 2 games, and he's then involved as well in the second goal. Great ball in the first place from Chris Shields, who I also thought had an excellent game on Saturday to him, and he just puts it on a plate then for Jans. Probably actually should have scored just after that, Macmillan, to get his second and definitely wrap up the win. But no, definitely I think if you're a Dundalk fan, I think you'd be happy. Got that monkey off the back with a win. Always nice to get one over your rivals. Couple more points on the board. Wouldn't exactly say everything off the field is kind of sore because I still don't know who the manager is, but we're not talking about off the field issues as much as maybe as in previous weeks, and they kind of feel now that things might settle down a little bit more and they can just concentrate more on getting more positive results on the pitch.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that, and I think it is time Dundalk started turning the wheel a little bit, and it seems like that is the case. David McMillan scoring again for the second week in a row, and I think he just doesn't seem to play enough for some weird reason. Now, obviously, since the new management came in, he's come in and bagged a few goals, and Pat Hoban, I think, is injured at the minute, so he's been getting a bit of a run. But when he plays, he scores, and I just think he even at his age, he's 33 or 34, he's still one of the best strikers in this league by a long stretch.
Yeah, he proved it in the cup final. I mean, he's well able to score goals, and he's not getting a lot of game time, as you say. But then Dundalk have a very... I was making the point, they have a very, very strong, talented squad. Dave McMillan starts with virtually any other team in the Premier League. And I was talking about Dundalk cast-offs. I mean, if you take the likes of Robbie Benson and Paddy Barrett, who are starring for the league leaders, I mean, their players Dundalk decided they could do without. And you still look at the calibre of the squad. Even if Dundalk had 3 or 4 injuries, they would still have top players, whereas any other team in the league, with probably the exception of Shamrock Rovers, 3 or 4 injuries would decimate them. And I know we were talking about Pats making 6 changes and beating, but they beat Waterford 1-0 and was probably a bit nervy, and they may do it. They may do it against Longford as well, but it's just going to be that bit risky for them.
Yeah, so Dundalk have climbed up now from I think it was 9th place to 7th place. They've gone above Waterford, and I suppose we'll move on to Waterford. They've beaten Longford 1-0, Prince with the goal. And I suppose that this game, the whole drama was all week was Kevin Sheedy has left the club. Kevin Sheedy's not the manager. Sorry, I thought I heard something going off again there. Kevin Sheedy's not the manager. Kevin Sheedy's this. Him and Mike Neal have left. All this drama was on Thursday brought out, and is saying that they weren't taking training. All this crazy stuff coming out in the media for some strange reason. Someone trying to leak false information basically out, and yeah, the club came out basically said that none of it's true, and they took training as normal on Friday, and then obviously get the win on Saturday. Such is life with Waterford. They're never far from drama. And I don't actually even think that's their fault. So whatever it is around the Chinese whispers around the area or whatever, and it seems to be a theme in this league. The Chinese whispers, we at least mention it once a week. But Gary, I suppose, were you surprised when you seen Waterford winning this game, considering all the drama surrounding the team?
No, I mean, it was probably a must-win for Waterford. And it was probably, I think I actually predicted the scoreline and the result spot on, so I'm not going to say I was surprised. But it was a very close, it was a close game. It was always going to be a tough one to call. And I think just home advantage maybe just swung it in Waterford's favour. They probably just have that better calibre of players than Longford, but Longford are probably just that bit better organised and playing more as a team at the moment. But just Waterford got it over the line, and there does seem to be a lot of drama down there in the RSC, and hopefully they can move forward from it now, and that's the end of it. But it was an absolutely crucial win. I mean, if Waterford hadn't won the game, they'd be sitting at the bottom of the table now. Instead, they're not even in the playoff position. They're ahead of both Longford and Derry. We're talking, they're actually level with Dundalk. It's only behind them in goal difference. And I was just talking about Dundalk in the European places and Waterford in a relegation battle. I suppose Waterford are a team for the last couple of years would probably have felt they should have been in Europe, or they should be battling for Europe. They went into the last day of the season in the European places last season, and unfortunately couldn't pull it off. They were beaten by Harps. But I think a battle for Europe seems a long way off in Waterford at the moment. And for me, they look like they're going to be in a relegation battle for a while, but an absolutely crucial win for them.
Ger, you would have seen them against Pats the other night. And I suppose in spells they were decent in some cases, but they just never really got near the goal to show enough quality up front. But what were your kind of thoughts on them, and did you think they could go into this game getting a win? Because I actually foresaw Longford winning this game, considering how I saw them playing against Shamrock Rovers last Saturday, and I thought that Longford were going to bounce back, but Waterford have shown a bit of resilience there, I feel.
Yeah, I've seen them the previous week as well against Bohemians, and to be brutally honest, on neither account was I overly impressed them. I thought the scoreline was flattering on both occasions when only to lose by a goal. But strangely enough, though, despite saying all that, I actually had just this kind of strange feeling they were going to win on Saturday night. I think maybe just everything that happened over the last kind of week, with even Mike Newell getting sent off for losing the head over the colour of a player's tape on Tuesday night, and everything then between him and Kevin Sheedy supposing resigning and not resigning on Thursday. I felt maybe it just might galvanise the players, get them kind of going, and to kind of get a win, especially at home, as Gary touched on. I think it kind of was must win for them, because I think if they had lost this game already, even at this early stage in the season, there was a bit of a gap already starting to develop. But massive win for them. Good bit of fortune with the goal. I think definitely Joe Gorman won't want to be looking back any time soon. But fair play to Prince. He does what all striker does. You hash down and chase the centre backs, and then shows good composure to slot the ball past Michael Kelly. And also deserve tremendous credit because they got Kyle Ferguson sent off early on in the second half, and they showed great character to see the game out. Like, need a bit of luck. Cameron Evans clearing a shot off the line, but they got there in the end. And just chatting to Rossa, who was at the game for us there on Saturday yesterday, and he said overall they gave a very, very good display. They were full value for their victory. He was very impressed with Zubawala, who we touched on last year, was probably one of the standout players in the league, and he probably was, along with Adam O'Reilly and Isaac Tushamba, probably the few players that stood out for me from them few games where I've seen them in person.
Yeah, I think with Zubawala, he was playing right back a lot last season. Yeah. He's moved into a centre midfield role, and Ross had said that to Kevin Sheedy after the game. But I think Kevin Sheedy deserves massive credit. He's working with a very limited squad there, and I just mean that because they're a very youthful side. They don't really have a lot of experience. We were speaking to him after the game on Tuesday night, and we were saying, the only thing you're probably missing there is maybe one or two leaders, and you could probably say Brian Murphy is a leader in that case, but for some reason he's not been brought into the squad. I don't know what the story is there with him and the fallout there. But if you're looking at it, I think if they add a couple of players to what they have there, I think they'll be fine. But they're still a long way away from reaching the mid-season break, so they need to be picking up wins like they are against Longford. Maybe if they play against the likes of Finn Harps and stuff like that, they need to pick up their points there against those teams, because I still think Pats and stuff like that still have the experience and the nous to see out games like the other night on Tuesday. But fair play to them coming and winning this game, and they've shown that they will take points off teams, rather than a lot of their fans were expecting them to just be the whipping boys this year. And in fairness, even though they're still getting players sent off and stuff like that, they're still seeing out games with 10 men. So I think they've shown a good bit of character in that sense, considering it's a youthful team as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's actually strange, as you touched on there, the two games that they have won this season, they both ended up finishing the game with 10 men. And they've had a little bit of unfortunate as well. You think of like the last minute one goal against Drogheda as well, the late goal against Finn Harps as well. Like if they had 8 points, they'd be leveling on the points. The same 9 games outside, I'd say they'd have 8 points and 11 points with Drogheda, and everyone's talking about what a great start to the season Drogheda have had. So it can be just them kind of small little bit of misfortunes. And as you said, like as we were saying to Waterford the other night, like they can just hang in there, keep picking up them little results. They've got Drogheda and Derry at home coming up inside the next month. There's a good opportunity to get 6 points. So they're still even within touch and distance of 9th or 8th come the season's break in the summer. Get a couple of more experienced players, maybe even between now and then. Try and get Brian Murphy and Oscar Brennan back on the field to play, because they are probably two of the more experienced players, then kind of leaders, as you touched on what they're missing, that have every chance. But I agree with Gary as well. I don't see any stage in the season where Waterford are going to be in the conversation for Europe or in the Finn Harps bracket of boring mid-table. I do think it's going to be a scrap for 8th, 9th throughout the course of the season at best. And I think if you offer Waterford fans 8th right now, they'd be absolutely delighted.
I think 8 with something to build on for next season would be a decent season. I know, look, it's not the European places and how strongly they finished last season, but they had a really good squad, especially the back end of last season, and a lot of those players left. A lot of that squad left, so they are kind of picking up the bare bones of what they have now. But what I would say is they've jumped up to 8th now, and they've gone above Longford and Derry. I think they beat Derry as well, so there's 2 teams that they beat. They're above now, so they need to start, as I say, picking up points against the teams that they're in and around. And then things might start turning their way. Longford, on the other hand, will be a bit worried now. They're losing against teams that they would have been targeting, trying to win. Draw the 4-0. I know they were beaten by Shamrock Rovers, but they were probably the better side on the night. And then they lose against Waterford, against 10 men for a good chunk of the second half as well. So I'd be a bit fearful if I was a Longford fan, just in terms of the last number of games. Still think they're a very good, exciting team, but they're getting turned over by teams that are in and around them, Gary.
Longford have the weakest. If you're looking at the start of the season and you're looking at the 10 squads in the Premier Division, Longford would look like the weakest squad. I mean, we've touched on this a few times before. They did incredibly well to come up via the playoffs. And I think of all teams in the Premier Division, they probably have bitten your hand off even for the playoff spot. It's something I've said about Finn Harps a couple of times when they've started off the Premier Division season. But I think Longford are probably that team. They would have been favourites to finish in 10th position. And they probably still are favourites to finish in 10th. Bit worrying. They beat Derry on the opening day of the season and they haven't won a game since. Picked up a very good point at Dalymount. I think the only other point they've got is the one at home to Finn Harps. And so they really could do with picking up a couple of wins. And I think we'll go on and talk about Derry, because I think the problem for the likes of Longford and Waterford are that Derry probably have a better squad. They've got a new manager in place, and I can see them pulling away from the relegation zone. So then from a Longford and Waterford perspective, it's the hope that the likes of a Drogheda or a Finn Harps could be sucked back into this. And for me, Longford probably look the weakest squad. They probably have a very good team. Darragh Doyle is a good team fighting for themselves. And Waterford probably have better players, even though they have some young players, but some very promising young players. But they probably need to just build the team spirit. And as Ger mentioned, they did battle incredibly well to get it over the line with the 10 men on Saturday. So for me, at the moment, it looks like Longford and Waterford will end up being the bottom two. I think Drogheda and Finn Harps will just have enough to stay clear of this, but there is a long way to go.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a long way to go, and I think it'll change throughout the course of the season. I do think if Waterford can last up to the midpoint of the season and add in some quality to go with what they have with the youth there, but just an experienced head or someone who may just know the league, someone like that strikes me would be a good signing for them, but obviously he won't go. Someone like a Gary Deegan who comes in and knows the league well and is a bit of a battler. I think that's all they're missing. Someone of that ilk, is not necessarily him, but someone of that kind of ilk who can come in, and maybe someone who's been playing in England and is looking to kind of wind down now in terms of their career, but just come in and add that little bit of steel, maybe in the midfield or in the defence, or maybe both. But Kevin Sheedy will have contacts all over England, and Mike Newell, to bring in players like that. And look, if they can get an Irish lad in, happy days as well. Obviously we want to see that, but I just think that if they can add in some players, maybe even from Swindon or whatever, because their owner's involved with Swindon, so it will be interesting to see if and who they decide to bring in the mid-season break. But if they can keep grinding out wins like they did the other night, you know, they'll last as long as they can in the league, which is good to see. But you mentioned Derry City there, and I suppose a huge win for them. Rory Higgins with his first game and his first win, an automatic managerial bounce, I would say, and Will Patchen with the goal in the 50th minute to give Derry the win.
Yeah, crucial win for them. Another penalty deciding the game. I only saw brief highlights. I was actually listening to quite a bit of the updates on the radio coming back. I was at the Women's National League game in Galway on Saturday. And certainly from the highlights I saw and from the accounts on the radio, I thought Derry were a bit fortunate to win the game. I think Sligo Rovers will say they at least deserved a draw, and it certainly sounded like that. And Derry were certainly hanging on for the last 10 or 15 minutes. But an absolutely crucial win for Derry. It doesn't get them off the bottom of the table, but it does move them level with Longford. And a nice bounce for Rory Higgins. He's going to be a massive loss to Stephen Kenny and the national team. But he's someone who, although still very young in the managerial game, is somebody that's going to be definitely one for the future. And it's a fantastic start for him to get the win. Probably didn't expect to go to the showgrounds and win on the opening night. But I would expect things to improve considerably for Derry now. I mean, they finished last season quite badly. They made a poor start to the season, but there is a good squad of players there. And I think Rory Higgins will get the best out of them. And I don't expect Derry to be in a relegation battle this season.
Just on Sligo though, like Greg Baldridge put up a tweet saying that they never really got going and stuff like that. So I think they more or less the players accepted the victory. When you saw this game, Ger, were you surprised by the scoreline, considering how well Sligo had started the season and probably how poorly Derry had started? But then again, we speak about managerial bounces and stuff like that. The squad getting a bit of a bounce from a new manager coming in. Were you expecting the bounce, or were you expecting this to be another defeat for Derry, and then maybe in a couple of weeks they start picking up results? What were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, given recent form and the way Sligo started the season with a couple of crackers they scored in Daly Mount on Tuesday night, I'll be honest, I did not expect Derry to win this game. I thought Sligo would keep pace and with Pats and Rovers and be joint top of the table again with them, or third or whatever on goal difference and all that crack. But no, I was very, very, very disappointed with Sligo. It's my first time to watch them live, apart from highlight snippets and the packages like that. And I'd have to disagree with Gary. I thought Derry fully deserved the victory. I thought Sligo didn't create anything. They had to actually wait until the 90th minute before they even had the first shot on target, and it was such a tame effort from their centre back, John Mahon. Like, you have to wait to your centre back to get your first shot on target with the dying embers of the game. But I thought Derry were brilliant. I thought they were well organised. I thought they bossed midfield. I thought Will Patching, who obviously got the goal for them, and Kieran Harkin in midfield, I thought they were absolutely excellent. It was a very, very poor game. I watched this at the same time as Dundalk Drogheda. I'm not going to lie, my eyes were more fixed on what was happening in Oriel Park, because it was just, apart from Joey and Doe's wonderful commentary at times, it was a very, very hard game to watch. Very, very little in terms of creativity, but massive win for Derry. It gets them going. As we touched on, new manager bounce, just had a real kind of organisation about them. The only thing that I will say, apart from set pieces, and obviously they got their goal from one, they never really did look like scoring. So it will be interesting to see. They've got like Bowles, for instance, now on Friday night, like, who are only just above them the table. Would they be kind of similar kind of style and just be organised, compact, and pay out for a draw and maybe live off scraps or set piece? Or will they kind of go for a little bit more and try and go for the win? But huge win. Big disappointment with Sligo. Like I said, first time to see them in full this season, and they were a big letdown.
Yeah, well, I've been impressed with Sligo in terms of their start to the season, but I did feel as though there was going to be a point where the unbeaten run comes to an end, and just, I suppose, the streak of doing so well. A bit like St. Pat's, I'm kind of, at this point, I'm kind of expecting Pats to have that one game where they kind of just fall off a little bit, but they haven't, in fairness to them and credit to them. But Sligo, I think this, I was just feeling like something different could happen with a new manager with Derry, and I feel as though they obviously have a really good squad. And fans, we did the Derry fan preview at the start of the season, and Kevin, who did it, was like talking about how good the squad is and how good the players are, that they should be looking to target a European place. So I wasn't really surprised when I seen the result, considering as a new manager came in. And I know, look, he's only a new manager and a young manager, whatever, but he's got off to a great start. That's just a result that Derry needed right now, just to get themselves, I suppose, back in contention and in and around. So it's because if you just keep slumping to defeats, the morale in the squad is going to be really low, and then obviously it's going to be hard to pick up the confidence and stuff like that. So it couldn't have been any better for Rory Higgins. Whereas Sligo, on the other hand, it's just a little bit of a setback. I still think that they'll be pushing for the top 3 spots, and I think that they'll bounce back probably next week as well.
Yeah, they've got a couple of big games coming up now. I'm hoping to go up and actually see them on Friday night, and heading the game park against Drogheda. And then they've got that game against St. Pat's on Friday night, and then they've got Dundalk as well. There's another trip up to the northeast then as well. So they'll be looking for a good response. Like I said, look, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, as you said. Like, you've seen them a few times this season. By all accounts, like from what I heard at the Bohemians game, even going back to the opening day against Dundalk, they were excellent. They have been played really, really well. It's just unfortunate the one night that I decided to sit down and tune in to watch them, they were just poor and just struggled to break down what was a well-organised kind of Derry side. But I still expect them to be very much in and around the hunt for European places come the end of the season. And as you say, like, at the end of the day, you know, they were going to drop points at some stage. We're going to see it in the coming weeks as well. At some stage it's going to happen, Pat. At some stage it's going to happen, Shamrock Rovers. Eventually they're not going to get a 90th minute goal to get themselves out of jail. You know, these teams were not going to go unbeaten for the rest of the season. So you're going to have bad results here and there, and it's just a question of now how can you respond, and that's what everyone I think will be looking towards for Sligo on Friday night.
I think a key thing though is, and I did touch on it already, it is a 36 game season. There are a lot of midweek games. We just came off a series of midweek games. We've another midweek games on the bank holiday Monday next, and the clubs like Sligo and Pats with the more limited squads are really going to start suffering, and these games will take their toll. And maybe it's not the midweek game they come a cropper, but it's probably the following week or something like that, because it just, our season is very tough. It's pretty relentless, and this is where I think the full-time larger squads of the likes of Shamrock Rovers and Dundalk will eventually come out on top over the longer season. Now, I know Dundalk have made a terrible start, but they have the squad of players that they can make 6 changes. Now, I know people will say, Pats fans, Jerry, you'll probably argue that they beat Waterford, they deserve to beat Waterford despite making the 6 changes. But it was a bit of a risk bringing in those younger players. And if those younger players turn out to be stars or players for the future, then maybe it can work out. But that's where I fear for the likes of Sligo Rovers and St. Patrick's Athletic, that it will be very tough over 36 games to keep pace with the likes of Shamrock Rovers.
Well, I think if they can do that, you know, then they deserve to be where they are in the league. So look, it'll be telling over the next couple of weeks what happens, but I think we'll leave it at that. Huge thanks, lads, and anyone watching or listening, make sure you like the video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, and and subscribers as well, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments on anything we discussed. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff there that we spoke about that people will probably agree and disagree on regarding refereeing decisions and so on. So let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and have a lovely day. We'll speak to you